welcome to Switch Your Sitch with your host, Katie Turner. I've got a very exciting guest today because we do have similar backgrounds, although she's branched into nutrition as opposed to fitness and business mentoring. So Rachel Zilic is not only a finance expert, she's also been a IFBB Pro League judge, a powerlifter, nutritionist, and she's also a very busy mum with a 2.5-year-old daughter.
Little girl, yeah.
So I'm going to hand it over to you. Rachel's in the middle of transitioning out of corporate into what I suppose started as a side hustle, the Good Bite, and has already got roaring success through colleagues and people that she's taught to. So I'm going to hand it over to you. And if you could just give our listeners a little bit brief intro about your finance background, as well as how did you get into powerlifting with that?
Absolutely. Thanks, Katie. Thanks for the introduction. I guess probably start with my corporate career. That's the most obvious place to start. So I have been employed by one of Australia's largest financial institutions now for a little over 16 years. Yeah. And I actually have the great privilege of, I guess, defining and supporting our strategy when it comes to our community partners and the support we provide to our not-for-profit clients and those that apply through the Westpac Foundation grants and scholarship programs. So it's an absolute delight to work with these individuals who commit their lives to addressing key social, economic and environmental issues. And I've been in this role now for coming into 12 years. And I think it's the clients that I work with and the ones that we're able to support from a beyond banking perspective that have seen me in this role for as long as I have been. During my time, I've also been a competitive athlete. So I represented Australia in the sport of bodybuilding in the US, in Europe, and also in Asia. And I had incredible support from my employer as well, being able to access sporting leave to enable me to travel and to also fulfill a lot of the training commitments that come with being with an athlete. So during my time as a competitive athlete, I also identified a real genuine interest in food and just how powerful food can be in terms of your overall health and well-being. We often overlook the importance of good nutrition, and I think there's a number of reasons why that has happened. I blame social media for one of those, but we'll get into that a little bit later on. So when I was on maternity leave, I took on the task, looking back now, I think it was crazy, but I did take on the task to finish my qualifications as a nutritionist and a wellbeing advisor. I did start it back in 2016, but life gets busy, right?
Yes,
challenges, many roadblocks, and it took a little bit longer than what I anticipated. So during maternity leave, and whilst Frankie was quite young and doing her 2 to 3 regular naps a day, I went back to the books and studied, finalised the qualifications, and this year launched my nutrition business, The Good Bite.
So how amazing that time management skills that mums have is cool. To be able to complete a course whilst baby's napping 2 or 3 20-minute or hour sessions a day and being tired. And you started that in 2016. I mean, that just goes to show you that no matter when you start it, it doesn't really matter. All the time will be right when you finish it and absolutely use it.
I think it comes down to prioritization. And, like I said, life will throw you unexpected curveballs. And even though you may have the best intentions to fulfill a particular task or complete a program, whatever it may be, sometimes you need to pivot and you need to be nimble. And it doesn't mean that you won't necessarily complete it. It just means that you may not be able to complete it at that point in time. I like to think that there's always an opportunity, whether it's in the not too distant future or perhaps in a few years to come, that you will have a little bit more time to complete the professional, personal development tasks that you have set out for you to achieve. But being a mum is hard work. It is so hard and no one really prepares you for it. You can read whatever books, you can listen to all the podcasts, but most likely your child will not do what the books tell you it's supposed to do.
Totally. I remember going into the birthing suite with my book and my coconut water. thinking after she's born, I'm just going to sit here and read this Patricia Cornwell book. And I think I've still read it 7 years later.
Yeah.
Well, there is. So let's come back to the interest in nutrition. And obviously, I come from a fitness background.
Yeah.
I have a personal training business. I also lectured at the Fitness Institute and ACPE in fitness, predominantly the business side of it because of the economics as the background. So what was the point that you realized how important your eating was to athletic performance?
So before I actually started weight training, and that was years before I even considered doing a bodybuilding competition, I didn't necessarily have what would be considered a healthy relationship with food. My mindset and approach when it came to food was consume as least amount of calories as possible and burn as much as possible. So it was all about fitting into the smallest pair of jeans rather than feeling good and eating for optimal function. I saw a neurologist at the time, and I was suffering from severe vertigo, really severe vertigo, and he diagnosed as postural vertigo and suggested to really start incorporating some strength and resistance training into my routine. So via my local gym and connecting with some like-minded people who were very giving of their time and advice, I not only took on some strength training and incorporated it into my daily routine, but I also started to research and understand that in order to build muscle, you are going to have to be eating in a calorie surplus, which means a hell of a lot more food than what I was eating at that point in time, and a greater variety of fruit, vegetables, lean proteins, fiber as well. So that was a real shift for me. And once I started to incorporate a greater variety of food and not link weight loss and being thin with my overall happiness, is when I really started to focus on paying more attention to the quality and the quantity of food that I was consuming. As I entered the competitive arena for bodybuilding, that's when I started to see such significant progress in terms of the way that my body was transforming. Disclaimer though, bodybuilding is quite a selfish sport. It focuses on aesthetics only. And unfortunately, for many athletes in that sport, often their psychological and their emotional well-being is compromised. And that's something that's not talked about often, and I have no issue talking about it. So again, with my clients, yes, it's important to look at that physical aspect of well-being. And if that physical transformation is important, we can absolutely work towards that, but let's not neglect the other dimensions of well-being as well.
I love that, because obviously coming through as a lecturer in fitness, I saw a lot of people enter the bodybuilding arena predominantly because they can hide behind body dysmorphia.
Absolutely.
Like eating, habits, or all of you bulimia, anorexia, over-exercising, under-eating, because it is about, it's okay to eat like this because I am competing.
Yeah.
Well, the other side of it that I don't know, you've obviously looked into, is that the highest prevalence of type 2 diabetes is amongst bodybuilders because of that cycle of high carbs to low carbs to zero to not modifying their blood glucose levels.
Yeah, I think it's a sport that's definitely become more and more popular as categories are released that make it a little bit more attainable for the general public. At one stage, you had to be either a real bodybuilder styled athlete or physique athlete, whereas these days we have categories which, again, are much more attainable to the everyday person if they wanted to compete. But your point is very valid. What we do see in the sport is often young people, in particular young women, who may enter a competition in order to run away from life's issues at that point in time. So instead of paying attention again to that emotional and psychological well-being, addressing some of the personal or perhaps even some of the professional issues that are causing them a bit of distress, they then try to deter it by entering a bodybuilding competition and become so engrossed and so immersed in the sport. And that's okay while you're prepping and for show day. But those issues that you've left unresolved for months are still there once that competition is over. So that's one of my greatest concerns with a lot of the emerging athletes coming through, is that there isn't a lot of attention being placed on that psychological and emotional impact in participating in such a competitive sport like bodybuilding.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And then to even coming out coaching that as well, with those underlying issues, can be quite dangerous. So a woman entering powerlifting and bodybuilding. Coming, I'd obviously say, from a previous where it was cardio to try and get your body fat down.
Absolutely.
So was there that fear of bulking up initially? Because when I started in the industry, that was a huge thing. Girls came to me and they're like, I don't want to bulk up. I don't want to bulk up.
Yeah. It was definitely a transition period. It wasn't something that I was able to get comfortable with overnight. Being quite underweight for a long period of time, again, really created body dysmorphia for myself. But as I started to train more intensely and at a higher frequency, and I engage professionals to support me in the journey, I think that's key here, making sure that you have people that are supporting you, that are qualified and have the experience. Then I put all my trust in them in terms of being able to guide me through a program and provide me the support that's going to get me the most desirable outcomes. And with that came that journey of understanding the importance of eating more in order to develop muscle. Now, it's not to say that you cannot build muscle in a calorie deficit. It just takes a lot longer. And the best approach is to absolutely have a diverse range of your macronutrients on your plate that is going to not only give you that full profile of vitamins and minerals that you require and the energy that you require, but if your goal is, for argument's sake, to build muscle, making sure that you aren't afraid of carbohydrates, that they are on your plate. If you're wanting to build and repair muscle, making sure you have an adequate amount of protein. So for me, it was a journey. It wasn't an overnight solution. It was about finding people that I could trust, doing my own research, making sure that the people I am engaging are qualified, are insured, are just not individuals who've, become famous via an Instagram profile. And there's a lot of that out there as well, hence why there's a lot of confusion, there's a lot of misinformation being communicated, and there's also a lot of dangerous advice that's being issued.
So that's a really good point. Let's touch on that. How important was it for you to get proper education? Because that is, I see so many influencers, people who've tried a diet, lost a lot of weight. I say if you go from eating Big Macs to carrots, it's a no-brainer, right? You can put up your before and after, but you can't be telling people that's what you did, because you don't want to influence people to eat a bag of carrots a day. They're not necessarily open about what they were doing previously.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess with the access we have to social media, and in particular Instagram and TikTok, it has created a huge amount of confusion when it comes to nutrition. And it's not the individual's fault. I think that we just assume as humans that those that are issuing advice, that have such a public platform, that have a huge amount of followers, are in fact accredited and insured to give that advice. Now, coming from a finance and from a risk background, if I was to issue any sort of advice that fell outside of my formal professional qualifications and insurance, I would be legally liable, and it would also result in instant dismissal. Whereas we have this entire industry being health and fitness, which is not regulated at all. And I think that's where peak bodies really need to step up here and identify individuals who are practicing out of scope and understanding that there are consequences if they do so. I think that, peak industries, peak bodies have absolutely failed the industry and failed the people that are paying at times a premium price only to receive advice from individuals that are in fact not qualified to issue that advice.
And also, I'm assuming through your business, you understand how personalized this programming needs to be, right? Because not one person is exactly the same as the next person next to them, whether it's lifestyle, body type, body shape, the metabolic rate, their gender, their muscle mass, their body.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
spot on.
That solution is not a blanket Instagram approach.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. So every individual, every client that I consult with is different, with different needs, different goals, different backgrounds. And over the years, we are constantly reminded as well of what we should and what we shouldn't be eating. And for me personally, I think taking that zero guilt approach with clients is what really helps them make better choices and encourages them to have and implement more sustainable eating habits in their day-to-day life. Now, it's also important for individuals to understand why they should be consuming certain foods, why they should be consuming certain proteins and fats and carbohydrates. And when you have an individual that's empowered with knowledge, they are more likely to be more compliant in adhering to a nutrition plan. And that's not what's available with a lot of this generic advice or these cookie cutter download a 1,200 calorie meal plan. Is it's often just a money making, revenue generating business without personalized consideration. Now, I see these 1,200 calorie meal plans. Now, most people's basal metabolic rate is about 1,200 calories. The other, I guess, trend I'm seeing is this day in a plate with a lot of health and fitness influences. Now, I think they're great for inspiration in terms of meal ideas, but what I think unfortunately it does is that for the person that's reading that post or seeing that picture is that they will then try to apply the same type of food with the same type of macronutrient distribution in their day-to-day life, which is not, again, personalised to their needs.
That's
so,
right.
you know, someone like myself, I'm 178 centimetres tall, I'm 76 kilos, I'm still active every day. And in fact, if we apply what my daily energy expenditure was during my competitive days, I was consuming in excess of 3,000 calories a day. So if I put that on a plate and posted it, and I had someone who really looked up to me and wanted to transform their body the way that I did, and they ate 3,000 calories a day, it's most likely they're going to be putting on body fat pretty quickly.
Yes, exactly. I don't operate outside my scope as a trainer. I don't write nutrition plans. And for that very reason is that it is time consuming, and my business is fitness. My business is, I want you to turn up. I want you to exercise. I want you to move better. I want you to move more.
Yeah.
And that's my scope of work. I have AHP, our allied health professionals, nutritionists, other people on hand that I can refer to. But to my 110 members, I'm your exercise person. That's pretty much as far. I can give you some quick. I eat vegetables out of plastic, to be honest, and I know that.
And nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that.
Posts when I'm busy, you know, rather than grabbing a Big Mac, grab a packet of those cauliflower and broccoli and a can of tuna, and that's a healthier lunch than a Big Mac. But I don't bang on about calories or macros.
Yeah.
It's just an alternative on the go that's quick and easy. And I have been vilified by them being in plastic.
It is. Look, there is absolutely that, the issues in terms of plastic packaging, which you need to consider. For clients who find themselves time poor, now I am not one to demonise frozen fruit and veg, steamable microwave bags, microwavable rice, whatever makes your life easier. Life is hard, it's challenging, and we are so time poor. So if I had a client that had an option of either eating a bag of microwavable vegetables or not eating them at all, I'm going to tell them to eat them the microwavable vegetables. And even if they were environmentally conscious, and I too am someone who's very much focused on sustainability, in particular environment, I look at other opportunities within my life which I could then try to eliminate, or, you know, with the reduction of waste, or trying to be a little bit more environmentally or socially conscious. So it is a compromise, but when it comes to nutrition, if that's your only choice, and you're finding that if I don't have that option of being able to put a bag of veg in the microwave for 2 minutes, otherwise I'm not going to eat it, well, I'm going to encourage you to buy the microwavable vegetables.
I love you already. And then look, that's the approach that I have with my customers. It's an 80-20 rule. I'm never going to tell you not to drink the wine. Just don't drink the whole bottle. Exercise 5 days a week. You know, life is also to be enjoyed, not endured. But yeah, I love that approach.
And I respect your commentary, Katie, around recognising where your strengths lie as a personal trainer. And I take the same approach. I mean, I've been very fortunate to have trained with some leading personal trainers, specialists in powerlifting and in bodybuilding. And I would probably have enough knowledge to be able to put together a workout plan or to take someone through a personal training session. But I'm not qualified and I'm not insured to do so. And I'm not a professional that's prepared to take on that risk. Even in the world of nutrition, I think the majority of people don't realise that personal trainers, unless they have formal qualifications in nutrition, aren't insured to issue specific individualised dietary advice. Myself as a nutritionist, if I have clients that present with certain medical conditions, I have to refer them on to a dietitian. I need to do a full scope exercise, understand the risks associated with taking on this client. If they're taking specific medications, if they have a specific chronic health condition, I have a network of allied health professionals around me who I would refer them on.
Excellent. I think that is a lesson for anybody, whether it be finance, whether it is
Absolutely.
being a solicitor, whether it's being in person. I mean, and I don't think people in personal training, especially and nutrition, you're dealing with the most important asset any single person has, and that's your health and wellness, because unfortunately, you can't get it back when it gets to a point that it's gone. And I'm a big prevention rather than cure person.
Love it.
So let's talk about monetizing a side hustle or an interest. So you're probably like me, you go to a party and I say to my mates, don't tell anybody I'm a personal trainer, because if you walk into that party and people know you're a personal trainer, I've been trying to get rid of this.
Yeah,
What's the best for fat loss? So it's same as nutrition, right? I'm assuming you walk into a party and they know you're a nutritionist and you get stuck talking about, even though you love it, I'm here to have a drink and mingle rather than. And so was there a point that you thought, hey, I can actually help others and monetize this into making a passion actually pay?
So I think the recent, when they're no longer recent, the lockdowns in Melbourne happened for over a year. So
I feel sorry for Melbourne after spending the last 18 weeks in lockdown.
Oh my goodness. I think seeing so many colleagues, family and friends really struggling with their overall health and well-being during the COVID pandemic made me fast track my formal qualification so I could support them directly as a family and friend, but also recognise that there's an entire community out there that would be feeling the same. And it's often very difficult to find individuals who are reputable and that have the mindset and the approach that nutrition should actually be simplified. And we've completely made an absolute mess of it over the years because of fad diets, because of social media, because of influencers, and there's a number of different things. So when I finalised my qualifications, I really wanted to launch the business as quickly as possible. What I wasn't prepared for, and even being in the business sector and the finance sector for quite some time, is just how long matters take to get resolved, i.e. registration, legal. I made the decision to trademark quite early on, so that was quite a complex process, but again, engaged the right people to support me on that journey. Could have tried and navigated it through myself, but I think it would have taken a lot longer. I also wanted to make sure that when I launched the business that there was an element of social good attached to it. So not only supporting clients in really developing customised plans to address some of their concerns with their overall well-being, but then how do I give back to the community, because I do have a genuine interest and I've supported the social sector and the social enterprise world for over a decade now. So a portion of all the consulting fees and all the workshop fees that I collect are then distributed to STREAT. They're a social enterprise here in Victoria that provide, I guess, the most vulnerable and disadvantaged youth in our community with employment and employment pathway opportunities. Yeah. So I was absolutely motivated primarily to support family and friends that I could see were struggling, to then replicate that support model to a wider community base, mums, dads, families, corporate professionals, sporting athletes, and then also establish a model where the work that I am doing is also impacting our community and really having a positive impact on the lives of young people.
Yeah, I think, and that's obviously your background where you've come from a finance and integrating that with a social conscience of a new business venture. And I think going forward, we're going to see this purpose-driven business models a lot more. And not only for yourself, but as you grow, your employees will start to connect with those businesses that they actually feel that they want to give back to.
Yeah. Look, I had a wonderful upbringing, a very supportive family network, went through the private education system. I had mum and dad that would take us to all our extracurricular activities, never hesitated if we wanted to participate in a sporting event or needed to travel for whatever reason. And life was tough for them. They came here in the late 60s, early 70s and didn't speak English for quite some time, but they made the most of life and the opportunities living in Australia presented to them. But I also know that there are many young Australians that just don't get that head start in life like I do and my siblings did. And it's really important for me, and I do live by the principle that all Australians have an obligation to ensure that their future generations live better than their last. And if that means a small amount of money being donated towards a cause like STREAT or whatever organisation you might have aligned values with, then I think it's such a small sacrifice to make for some incredibly valuable social impact.
Yeah, I think I'm a big affiliation with kids as well. I find, there's this, my daughter, but having, your blueprint printed by the time you're 5 years old, you can really change somebody's life by being able
Definitely.
that belongingness, that somebody actually cares. I did a podcast with a lawyer recently, and he deals with some of the worst criminals ever. And the underlying factor is, even one of his clients cried the fact that nobody had ever cared about him in 5 years. So the fact that you are able to change that to a degree through your work is very empowering. So, Nutrition Simplified. Can you give our listeners an idea of what that actually means?
So I guess to my earlier point, I do not blame any of my clients that approach me with all the fad diets that they have experimented with, all the quote unquote superfoods that they're paying a fortune for, all the pills, the potions, the powders that they've unfortunately fallen victim to in terms of some pretty savvy and sassy advertising and marketing campaigns. And again, it comes down to the lack of regulation in the industry. So when we look at simplifying nutrition, it's really about understanding the unique individual needs of the person that I'm working with. And it may not just be person. I work with couples. I have a few families at the moment. So a family of 4, I have a family of 6. So recognising, first of all, where are there nutritional gaps, if there are any? Now, I start there with a food diary, so really encouraging these individuals to keep a record of what they're consuming over the course of a 2 to 3 day period. And that gives that individual a really good indication of what their eating habits are. Sometimes they realise that they're eating way more than what they thought they were. And other times they're actually consuming a lot less food. And we know that under-eating can have quite significant consequences, or delay your progress in achieving your health-related goals just as much as the overconsumption of calories as well. So once we've been able to identify what the current eating habits are, also getting some regular blood work done too. So if we do have any nutritional deficiencies, we can identify them and work towards them. It's really then asking the client, what foods do you enjoy eating and what do you not? Because there's no point me putting broccoli on your plan if you do not like eating broccoli.
Oh, that's good. Kale is out for me. I have tried that stuff over and over again, and my guys know that's an ongoing joke. It's good for you. I just can't do it.
Yeah, and I'm the same. I'm a nutritionist. People assume that I would love all their food that are considered healthy, and I don't. I'm human, right? There are certain foods that I just do not enjoy eating. So it's then working with those foods to develop a plan that's going to mean that that individual is not going to develop meal fatigue pretty quickly. And we know that meal fatigue, which is when an individual just gets bored or tired of adhering to a plan, is the primary reason why people just don't stick to plans. It's also about identifying easy recipes that anyone can put together. Whether you're a busy mom or a corporate professional or a teenager that needs to get to a sporting event, let's not overcomplicate the process, right? Let's find recipes and meal ideas that you're, number one, going to be encouraged to prepare, and number two, that you're actually going to enjoy eating. So we were talking them through some of the options. You already see during that initial consultation, they feel a lot more relieved. Oh my God, that's amazing. I didn't realize that I could still eat this, or I didn't realize that I didn't have to eat this. The other component, which I find is quite interesting, and I would say with 90% of my clients, this is very common, is that they consume supplementation without the need for supplementation. So if you're an individual that doesn't have any really chronic illnesses, that is eating a vast range of fruit, vegetables, proteins, nuts, legumes, doesn't have any dietary restrictions or allergies or aversions, it's highly likely you're going to be getting your micronutrients, so your vitamins and minerals, through your food. So unless you're getting blood work to determine if there are any deficiencies that need to be addressed, and you're spending a fortune on supplementation, all you're doing is creating some pretty expensive urine.
A lot of clients come to me and say, should I take a protein shake instead of breakfast? I find that what happens with my clients is they have the shake and then they feel like they haven't actually chewed and masticated food, so they then eat the breakfast or eat something as well.
Yeah.
So just adding calories that maybe aren't needed. So,
yeah. You're absolutely spot on. So really, when it comes to simplification, it's about working with that client, and every single one of my clients is different. If I have a client that really, really enjoys cooking, I'll ask them the question during that initial consultation: do you want to, do you have time to spend on making a beautiful roast or perhaps some chicken schnitzels? And they're more than happy to do so. But then I also have other clients that say, give me all the frozen fruit, veggie, microwavable bag, microwavable rice options, because I know if that is okay, then I'm going to stick to it. There's no right or wrong approach. And this is the importance of working with a health professional that's really going to spend that time and has the knowledge to be able to create well-balanced meals that are going to suit your requirements, suit your activity levels, try to assist you with any sort of illness or disease symptoms that you might be experiencing. Disclaimer, I will never, ever put forward to a client that I'm a miracle worker. I think food certainly has its place in terms of being able to support people with illness and disease. But we also live in a country where we're very lucky to have access to modern medicine at an affordable price, and the two need to be complementary. So never also suggest to clients to, if they're taking medication, to stop taking medication. They're being prescribed medication for a purpose. I think nutrition and modern medicine need to work together. They go hand in hand. So yeah, really bring it back to basics, working with the client, getting them excited about what we can include in their plan, but also reminding them that it is an 80-20 rule. Stick to your plan 80%. And then give yourself 20% flexibility. Enjoy the wine, enjoy the chocolate, enjoy the pho. Pho is really popular at the moment. When I ask people, what's your favourite food? It might be a Melbourne thing because it's been quite cold.
Yeah.
Don't feel guilty about it. Go out, enjoy the meal with family and friends, go home, wake up the next morning, get back on the plan.
I love that. I actually have a client now who's seeing a nutritionist, and in the past she's done Weight Watchers for years and years and years. And the problem about that was, again, being a cookie cutter approach, but it was, you'd have to take your bag of vegetables. She said they told you to take your bag of vegetables or your own meal when you went out for dinner, and she said it's just not something that you can integrate.
Sustainable. No, I think it's more than just, when we go out for dinner, it's more than just consuming the food that we choose to order. And I say this as someone who was a bodybuilder and had to do that. If I wanted to still be engaged, I had to take my meals with me, but that served a purpose. There was a need to look a certain way by a certain point in time. I would never encourage that behavior for anyone else. It's just not necessary whatsoever, because when we do that, it then takes away from the entire experience. And going out for dinner is just as much about social interaction and communicating with your company as it is enjoying the meal that you've chosen on the menu that night.
Especially there in Melbourne, because my brother lived in Melbourne, and we lived in Melbourne for 5 years growing up, and Lygon Street and Richmond. And
very lucky here. Very lucky. It's nice to see the hospitality venues starting to open up and Melbourne coming back to life.
Definitely. Well, you've definitely filled a gap in the market. I love your approach, Emily. Rachel, I really want to promote your business here, that people can individually have a tailored solution to their food intake, to their nutrition. So where can they find you?
They can reach me at www.thegoodbiteau.com. I have an inquiry form there you're able to send through, and then I can reach out to you and talk a little bit more about your need. I offer one-off 1 month, 3 month and 6 month nutrition packages. I also have an Instagram page, so that's at @thegoodbiteau. More than happy for you to have a look through the pictures there, or to send me a direct message, or email is hello@thegoodbiteau.com.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Emily. I really appreciate your time. And we're going to promote that through, because there's nobody I've had with such a personalized programming approach, rather than, as you say, download my PDF of 1,200 pages and you just pay your $39.95 and then that. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And we'll stay in touch.
My pleasure, Katie. Lovely to connect with you. Take care.
You too. Thank you.